Hi, everyone. We're going to start our first really big project. We've been working pretty small and pretty detailed up to this point, and hopefully working in that scale and with that kind of surface design and texture, you've gotten some facility for working with material. We're now going to kind of stretch and go big, which will be fun, I think, and hopefully a little bit a little less confined, a little more freeing. And we'll be working with the Coil project. And Coil is a technique that lends itself to very large forms. And it's kind of a little bit slower building technique than others that we'll use a little bit later, but it's really solid and is very stable. So I'm going to give you a PowerPoint. I have an assignment, of course, which you can read. Briefly, it's that we're going to be going at least 2 to 3 feet tall. You'll probably need a couple bags of clay. And we want to go and have it, we'll be building down to up. This will be simpler than if we were doing something in person where I could help you. I won't go into that, but this will still be very, I think, pretty interesting. So we build down to up, and I want it to have more than one limb. If you imagine like a tree, how it branches out and has more than one limb, or a hand has 5 as examples. But I'll give you more examples in the PowerPoint and show you a little bit about Coil, and hopefully you'll gain appreciation for it. Okay, so without further ado, let me start sharing screen here. Here we go. Coil Sculpture. So again, I mentioned that Coil is really strong. They actually make architectural ceramics from Coil. In this photo, the woman is allowing the coil to show. She's not working it all together. We can let it show, or you'll see the demo on the coil. I show you how to expose the coil or to work it in. If you want it stronger, I'd suggest working in. You have to at least work it in on either the outside, by working it in, like smushing it together, the coils. Either smushing together on the inside or the outside. I tend to do both, unless I want that to be part of my design. But anyway, the point here is you can go really big with Coil. This is Nadir Kahili's. He's a Mideastern architect, now deceased, not too long ago. He runs a place called Cal Earth up in Hesperia, where they make sort of experimental housing using the Coil method. They used to build a kiln, like build out of clay, and then build a kiln around the house, and then fire the entire house. But now what they're doing is they have these long tube bags that they fill with concrete and dirt, and then they put, instead of scoring and slipping, they put barbed wire between each layer, and the barbed wire holds it in place, and then when it rains, the concrete starts to cure. These things are very strong. So Coil method, again, can build very big. And also it withstands earthquakes. They're really quite amazing. I think Pomona College has one of these houses that they built on their campus, on their campus farm. It's right in the middle of Claremont. Again, you can go really big with Coil. I wish I knew her name. She does some really stunning sculptures. She shows her coils. I kind of like how her stripes in her shirt mirror the coils in the sculpture. But again, you can go life size and bigger with Coil. I'll show more of her work coming up. This is student work from Chafee, Chris Hackworth. This is for the Student Invitational a number of years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. And these are about life size, about 5 feet tall. So it's really quite a stunning figurative sculpture. All Coil. June Kaneko, very famous ceramist. He lives in Nebraska, in Omaha, and these are about 15 feet tall, and he'll build them from Coil, and then he'll build, just like the architect, he'll build a kiln around these and then fire them. But they're really, really gargantuan. Oh, by the way, he, as you can see, he joins his coils together. Here's the first coil sculpture I ever made, and it was in grad school. This is about 5 feet tall. And I was thinking of it sort of like if you went to one of the national parks in Utah where they have those water carved caves that are really, and if you poured clay in there and took away the cave, you'd end up with a form, some sort of earth spine like this. So anyway, that was my idea. And but again, Coil can go really big, and and it doesn't have to be, you can put sharp edges in it, depending on, it's sculpting, so you can shape it. So that's my first experience with the coil. This is also a coil. This is, I'm just showing like the three things in my work. This one, and then this one. They're all coil. And it's sort of a different interpretation of how to use coil, but I'm using that technique of rolling out coils. We won't be making open forms like this. I'm just showing that there are other possibilities with coil that you can build and construct in different ways. Okay. And this is sort of harkens back to our 3-object project, where objects in act of exploding and growing and a lot of movement. But anyway, that's not this project, but you can bring in elements of that aliveness to your coil sculpture. This is student work from Chafee. Now this is really cool. She has 5 limbs. This is the big toe coming out. This thing's big. I mean, I'll move back. It's like about this big. So it's really quite huge. And it's almost like that on the dock, you have that thing you can move over the dock and make things, magnifying glass like that. So it's built with that perspective. And you can see the reality she brought to these toes, which is really quite a wonderful piece. Very hard to do the way she constructed it. As you can see, it's not just laying flat on the ground. So she built it with the toes going up and then flipped it and built the other part of it. So if you're ambitious, you can do that. If you feel confident, you can do that. But I won't require it for this one because I'm not around to help you. This is a Pitzer student. The leg is made out of coil, and it's about 3 foot long. It's like a real size of a leg. And then I think I showed you this in another slideshow, but it's a very good object. Coil. This is hard slab. We'll be doing hard slab next. These hang. I love this. This is objects in the act of floating. Really huge, gargantuan coils. This is a more vessel-oriented piece, but I like how it's not just up and down. It exists on its side, almost like an eggplant or something, which doesn't really have a bottom. And I love that it has an opening. So it is a vessel, but it's on its side. So it's more gourd-like than vessel-like. And again, they have left their coils exposed in a very beautiful way. So you can make that part of your pattern. This is coil, and it's a vessel also. I like how this is off-center. Very beautifully. So you can scrape your coils and get them really smooth like this. Student work, more than 1 limb, and this time they started with 2 of them and joined them up. You know what they might have done is actually started, well, I'm not sure. I don't know if they started like this and built up and then flipped it over, or if they started with it open. I'm thinking they did it because it undulates here. So I'm thinking that was the last thing, and they started with 2 things and then joined them up. So very interesting. This is a Chafee student. It's like a pair of pants. Yeah, this is one where we flipped it over. So she built this first. This used to be the bottom. And she built up like this and flipped it over and then built this guy up. I love how it looks. He's full of air, just ready to. This thing's huge. It's about 4 feet tall. But again, we have more than 1 limb. We have 2 feet, 2 arms, and a head. This is the woman I told you about who did those life-size coil things. And what she did probably, you can see these different directions. She probably, I bet you she started right here and then built this way, and then propped it up so she could build this way. You always have to build down to up. And then when it's set up, she flipped it over and then built this way. We're not going to flip things over, but that's how you do it to make things move in different directions. Coil always has to build up and down. You can't build horizontally with coil. It just collapses. I hope that makes sense. Let me say that again. You can't build horizontally with coil. You have to go down to up. You can do gentle changes of direction like this, but you can't go like that. But you can do, nice curves and stuff like that with coil. This is an interesting coil pot, and they're showing some of their coils in there as part of the design. We're not making pots, but it's quite a beautiful, they've utilized stamping as well as other things on here. People always want to make elephants. They're hard to do and they always fall apart. If you need to make an elephant, go ahead. I'm just telling you, a lot of people make elephants, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why. Anyway, but I think there's something you can find that's either abstract or some other content that's closer to your heart than an elephant. But if you have got to make one, More than 1 limb at least. Four of those, and a couple of tusks and a trunk. This is a good sample. This is when I taught at USC, they had this is one of the student works, a lot of limbs. So these are all coils. So they've done this really organic, almost like coral type of piece. This is a Chafee student. This one they flipped. I think they started out, this was the bottom, they built that up, or else vice versa. This is the bottom and they built that up and they flipped it over and then built these up. This thing's huge and it's really heavy. He went through about 5 bags of clay. So while it's still wet, that's 125 pounds and it's big. It's like 4 feet tall and about 2.5 feet wide or more. It's big. I'm showing this because this is for my vessel class where I have them make 2 coil vessels and I have to make a negative shape in the middle and they build according to the shape. So maybe you can see this car, pretty cool. But what I like about this also, it shows you 2 very different utilizations of coil. One that's really tight and very perfect and one that's very loose and organic. So the potential for either is really clearly demonstrated with this piece. That's why I like it. And he did a really nice job with that car too. Here's a way of starting. If you want to start branching out right away from the very bottom, you need to have walls in there to build off of. If it's just an open space, you try to build over the open space, it'll all collapse in. Please see my demo. I should have said that earlier. Really look at my demo because I really cover a lot of this stuff about making walls. Now walls, if you start out solid, you start with just like a trunk or something like that, and then let's say you get about this tall, but you don't have to build a wall all the way to the bottom. The wall can be about that wide, same thinness as the coils. You have to maintain the same thinness or things will crack and it's going to dry out slower on the inside. Clay shrinks. I hope this makes sense. So keep your consistency of walls with the coils and you'll build your walls out of the coil. Anyway, you put a wall in, but it only has to be go about that far down to support a coil on top of it. I've got a photo coming up of that. But if you want your limbs to start out right away towards the bottom, this is a great solution. And right now they have 5 that can branch out from this. Isn't that beautiful? This is very doable for all of you, and you can work this clean very easily. So I am expecting you guys to be able to have some control at this point in terms of surface design. All they did was added spikes, but they did a nice job. They rolled the spikes out very carefully, stuck them on. They could stick them on paper clay. I don't care. But it's very beautiful, and you can do this. So there's how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 5 different spiky things coming up. And look how they move too. This is really beautiful. You can do that. This is more kind of a student work. I just found this online. You can do something like this. It's okay. Kind of, you can see the difference. I mean, that's really fine. And this is a little more crude, but it's okay. It's okay. Beautiful here. Here's a squirrel with this, I don't know, some sort of stump coming up here. But look at that movement. It's all coil. This is quite lovely. This starts getting almost looking like those, what are they? Termite mounds in Africa. But really wild types that, this stuff by itself would not probably stand up, but it's together, all together it works. And this is really quite ambitious. Again, their coils are exposed on the outside, but they smush them together inside. Please see the demo. I talk about that a lot. You got to see the demos. I'm suspecting some of the weaker work I'm seeing is because people didn't really watch the demo. That would be my guess. This is quite beautiful, and the color really helps it too. So here's more than 1 limb. There's 2 limbs here. So they didn't branch out in the second limb. I mean, it looks like they're starting it down here, but actually they don't branch out until up here. Okay, many limbs in this one. And actually they smoothed it all together on the outside and then let the coils expose at the top. So that's kind of nice. This is very lovely. I really like this one. Very organic and scraped and just well finished. And also it has a small, think about the 3-object project where we got mass out of the base. So this has sort of a floating quality to it. It's not like a heavy, like plump, like this one. Whoa, that's beauty. Like that one's a little bit of a plop. That one's a bit of a plop. It's still nice, but this one has sort of life and lift to it because of that small base. And it goes into 1, 2, again, 5 or 6 limbs. This is quite lovely. Very lovely, actually. I love the coils work really well on this. I love how it almost, follows the contour of everything in the face. And I was going to have this do a bust, like of the face, but this kind of thing where it comes out horizontally is very hard to do. So I didn't want to have to try to, I would want to be in the studio with you if you went that far out that way. So if you want to do something like this and it goes a little bit horizontal, Zoom with me. I'll show you how to do it. A hand is a really good, I love this one. I think it's quite beautiful. And they started getting smaller with the coils when they got up here, which is okay. They went from large and then gradually gets thinner. So the drying process won't be a problem with this. It won't shrink and crack. But a lovely interpretation of this project. This is Betty Davenport Ford, a very famous Claremont ceramist, now deceased. But she works in coil, and look at all these limbs. And she really finishes her work and scrapes them. You can Google her, Betty Davenport Ford, and see her style. She'll add hard edges into it. She's a 50s person. We're going to do a project based on 50s and 60s sculptors, and she'd be a good inspiration for that too. But anyway, you can see how well the work is finished and scraped. And okay, this is something I never finished, but I've got one at school. I haven't gone back to work on it, and I'm making a series of cocoons, like butterfly ones, but I'm making big. They're like 4 or 5 feet wide. And I started this, didn't get a chance to finish it. COVID came along, but I'm showing you this because, and I didn't really even finish the texture on it, but I was just kind of rough hewing, just roughing it out. So this is about, I don't know, about yay big. And I'm going into 2 little things, almost like a roots to your tooth, that's going to start coming in and keeping it kind of together. But I want to show you how this wall here only goes down to right there. So it's about 3 inches or so wide. And then I can start building this on here. Here's also it's set up. And once your thing is done and it's strong and you use thicker coils, you can set it on its side. And of course, once it's fired, you can set it however you want. But I like this orientation of things. Instead of being, even though you're building down to up, it can end up some other way. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to show you this because it has a couple limbs and I had a wall here so you can really graphically see that I didn't have to go all the way down to support these coils going out in different directions. So I built a wall in there. Anything else I want to tell you about that? You can see how I work the coils together with my fingers. See the demo. And I think that's it. So I hope that's helpful for you. And read the assignment, look at the demo, and look at this also for ideas, and Google things. Google coil sculpture. You can go into Pinterest. You can go into I think I am in the syllabus, I have a couple websites. There's artaccess.org. And there's accessceramics.net, I think. You can look these things up, get a lot of ideas. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you are stimulated. You might want to make some drawings. You're welcome to check them out with me. Like, hey, can I do this? Is this possible to do? I'm happy to look. And I will see you. This will be on Monday. What is the date Mondays? The 30th is, I think the 30th is Wednesday. So it'd be October something, I believe, on Monday. But anyway, we'll start at Monday and I will see you then. Bye-bye.